is up, T.O.Gs? If you can't tell by the intro what is new in 2022, guess who's back? Back again. If you can't tell by my sheer enjoyment, my sheer excitement, the Sportster is back, everybody. So if you haven't been following the channel, and if first of all, you know, my channel's accumulated over 2 million views, and yet my subscriber count wouldn't reflect that kind of attention. And also, I'm so bad. When every video I introduce myself and I say, "What's up, T.O.Gs?" If you're new to the channel, T.O.Gs are that one guy subscribers or supporters. So welcome to any of you who might be just dropping in for the first time. And for all of you returning, welcome back to the... yeah, this is probably probably gone too far. But the Sportster's back, everybody. If you haven't been following the channel, maybe you didn't ever notice that the Sportster went away for quite a while. You know, it isn't even indicative of how long it's been out of commission, because for a while the Sportster was on the channel when I couldn't even ride it. There was a fuel leak after I replaced the choke cable, which had broken, and I had removed the carburetor, tried to figure everything out. In the process, I actually found that there was a hole in the carburetor, and then trying everywhere, eBay, all these other places, there was no way for me to replace the carburetor without having to replace the air cleaner as well. And you know, there's the whole process of ordering parts, and in the meantime having to wonder whether or not that part is actually going to fit, because with a bike that's almost 20 years old now, this is a 2002, actually it just turned 20, so this is a 2002 Sportster 83R that's been upgraded to the 1200 cc upgrade. This was my first love. This was the first Harley that I ever bought. It was a 2003. It was actually the 100th anniversary model, but really nothing is different on this bike, except for on the 100th anniversary model, instead of this little silver grill here, you had this little wings. Instead of wings, it had like the 1903 to 2003 100th anniversary plate there. Other than that, this bike is essentially the same bike as the one I had before. This bike actually had fewer miles on it, and so you know, all the way around, I was just so excited to get this motorcycle. And then for me to only have ridden it for like half a year before we ran into that problem. First of all, the choke cable broke. I had a whole video on replacing the choke cable, which, you know, I did everything right. The problem was when I first put the cable back in the process, one of the hoses was just slightly off, as well as finding that hole in the carburetor had a small leak. I took this thing apart and put it back together 3 or 4 times, and every time it just didn't make sense to me why I still had a leak. So this last time that I did it, I was so super thorough, and actually this last time I did it, I actually kind of took it apart and put it back together like 2 or 3 times, just this last time alone. Just because I wanted to make absolutely certain. To me, it just didn't make any sense why, you know, obviously the hole in the carburetor needed to be addressed, and that I patched up, and I can't remember the name of the stuff. It was essentially like this steel reinforced epoxy that is graded for you know, fixing holes and fixing parts of car engines. Made sure that it was graded so that we weren't going to have any issues. And we've been riding this thing for a couple of days now, and obviously I wanted to make sure that we didn't have any leaks here before, you know, we went ahead and announced on the channel that the Sporty is back, and it is back. I can't tell you, like, it's almost like getting a new motorcycle, because having had it out of commission, you know, it's the beginning of the year, and you know, everyone I think understands that at the beginning of the year you're kind of strapped for cash because of the holidays, right? You spent money on gifts and, you know, going out to eat more often because you've got people in town and blah blah blah. So all those things compounded to me having to wait and just wait to try and take it into maybe to the dealer or just the local shop, which actually Stowe Cycles is the one in Woodland. If you live in the area and you need your bike fixed or your bike maintained, I couldn't give you better feedback from a place that I've taken multiple bikes to have worked on. But anyway, didn't have the money to commit to making those fixes or having them done by a professional. And so again, it's one of these things that I think about all the time. And so I just recently had watched my video of changing my choke cable, and watching me take it apart and put it back together, and knowing that, like, I did everything right, except for finding that little hole in the carburetor, which I needed to patch up. It just didn't make any sense that it didn't work. So again, there's a lot of good things to come out of this. Obviously, it sucked to not be able to ride my bike for so long. This thing has been out of commission since, I think, before August of last year. But there's a lot of positive things to take away from this. One of them is just taking my carburetor apart that many times, you know, getting to know my bike and the engine a little bit better, and the part numbers, and just getting more comfortable working on the bike. All of that was a good takeaway. You know, obviously, like I said, I would rather have not been able to road. Oh, this road is terrible. Obviously, I would have rather have not been able to not ride my bike, if that makes any sense. Obviously, I'd rather have had my bike this whole time. But if we're gonna take something away from this, it's that, you know, things go wrong. And I would say, all in all, I spent about $50 to change everything. Actually, when we pulled the carburetor with an intake manifold, the seal on the intake manifold needed to be replaced. It was, you know, it was just old, and it had hardened and had some cracking in it. So we replaced that as well. So that cost like $20. That epoxy stuff had cost me about $10, and then I replaced some bolts that weren't stripped, or like there wasn't anything wrong with them, but for some reason they were having a hard time going in. So I went over to Ace and got some new bolts for the where the air intake bracket attaches to the carburetor. I had to get some new bolts to replace those, and so all in all, I spent about $50. And then, you know, the choke cable is pretty cheap, and I'll refer you back to that video if you have any questions or are interested about how that went over. But in the meantime, I had replaced my grips too, because the old grips were just funky. They were still those old stock rubbery grips, and actually replaced them with J&P Cycles. Had some, I think it was J&P Cycles. Obviously I'll have that here information for you on the screen if you're interested. Replaced them with some thinner grips. They're not quite as thin as like my Super Duke R, you know, those sport bike grips, which are really thin. But these are much thinner than the big fat stock Harley rubberized grips. And these ones are really nice, and you know, they get all funky. Those stock grips get all funky, and if you've owned a Harley and you have had stock grips on there for more than just, you know, a few hundred miles, you understand why people change those out. Not just for looks, but because they get this like film on them, and then that black stuff rubs off on your hands. You know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. So the bike is back. It's running nicely. You know, it's been so long since I've ridden it that I rode it around town for a little bit the last day or so, and just made sure like nothing was going to go wrong, that everything was still running smoothly. Because, you know, when a bike sits for 6 months, I'm probably going to end up changing the oil too, just to make sure all the fluids are good. You know, I was really hesitant that the bike was going to run as well and as smoothly as it has after having sat so long. And if you're watching this video and you're thinking you should probably change your fluids now, we're definitely going to go ahead and do that as well. But man, I am so stoked. If you've missed the Sportster, the Roadster 1200, leave it in the comments. I can't tell you how much I've missed it. my wife was like, she's like, she could tell how happy I was. It felt like winning something. I felt like I won something. I felt like I got a new bike, and I'm just so excited to not just have my Super Duke to ride, but also to have the Sportster. You know, when I just want to get around town or go for a short ride, and you know, and when I want to ride the Harley around, right? If you go into Harley, you know what it's like to ride the bike around, to turn heads, and it's one of those things. It's I guess it's hard to explain. And this motorcycle is just one of my all-time favorite bikes. I love this bike. So happy to have it back. Oh, thank you so much for returning. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. If you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up down there, which is the like button, and if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Guys, if you are out there riding, please be safe, be kind to one another. My name is Eric. I'm that one guy, and I am out.